All right, let's go. All right. Vegas won, just like I predicted at the start of the season. Remember? Or
Yeah.
no,
Start of the playoffs.
Yeah. It'd be bad.
Well, they won in 5 games.
Yeah. And Kelly McCrimmon, you wouldn't even know who he is. He's a general manager. He picked up Aiden Hill for goalie insurance. That's what they call it. Fourth pick.
He must know talent.
Well,
So it's funny, Dad. They had Jonathan Quick, 2-time Stanley Cup champ, and Cassie decided to go with Hill. So let me ask you: can you, by let's say watching practice, can you tell if what goalie's hot, or is practice just practice?
well, no, practice, you wouldn't do that with Cheevers because you'd never play him. But no, I could tell. You get a feel. You get a feel for Bruce Cassidy gets all the credit, which he should get all the credit because he's the guy that's going to get fired if they don't win.
How would you think? I said it before. Bruce Cassidy, he leaves Boston in not a very good taste in it.
Nobody leaves Boston
in a good taste in their mouth. Then he gets hired by Vegas.
That's true, Tim. Just think about Boston. Nobody leaves.
None of the coaches leave with a good.
No, and they all.
And what's the common denominator there?
I don't know. No,
But-
but I just thought about it. That's with every club.
Yeah.
Coaches never leave.
leave. But you look at Cassidy, right? He leaves Boston, and then he's like, would he look at Boston and see that they're breaking records? Would he feel a little funny, or does he just not even think about
No,
it?
he'd feel it.
He'd feel
think,
funny.
why did I leave this club?
Yeah, and then he ends up winning the Stanley Cup, and Boston's out first round.
Yeah, well, I could tell Boston just happened to go into that little slump. It's hard to describe, and you can't get out of it. It takes a while to get out of it. They just happened just as they were going into the playoffs. Remember I told you, Tim?
Yeah, you were saying, but the thing is that I'm not knocking Florida. I mean, they went to the finals, but the Bruins the hockey gods weren't with them. I mean, they had that one hand pass that hit the guy's pinky, and they called that was a big goal.
That was a big goal.
And then Marchand had the series winner on his stick.
Yeah.
And Bobrovsky,
breakaway.
Yeah, Bobrovsky.
And he usually scores those.
Yeah. Look at Vegas. How many Canadians were on there?
Oh, I don't want to get. I think I get taking people off.
Well, I think it says something, though. You know what I mean? They were a big, nasty, mean. Both teams were big, nasty, and mean.
And they said, "You want to play it this way? We'll play it this way."
Yeah.
And they got Taychuk. What
did I say? I said the difference between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Taychuk grabs Marner and punches him in the mouth.
Yeah.
And Bennett grabbed
the kid too.
Grabbed the rookie kid, smashed his head on the ice, and then he cross-checked Benning in the back of the head.
Tried to trick his head off.
And nothing. And then they hit Eichel, and then he runs and hits Eichel, and then the next game they break his sternum in Vegas. That's the difference.
Anyhow, I got heck from a guy from Saskatchewan, and you're always talking about it. It sounds like it's from Ontario, which I never meant.
Right. So it was I think it was a Twitter. It's Sask Rider fan. And he says, how about some credit for the players on Vegas roster from Western Canada? You seem to praise all the players from Toronto area, but the Golden Knights purposely built their team from the West. And Canadians, exclamation.
So I'll 3 from Quebec, 4 from Ontario, 1 from Alberta, 2 from Saskatchewan, 3 from Manitoba, and 2 from BC.
Yeah.
So the guy was right.
So Kelly McCrimmon, he's the GM of Vegas, and he owned and ran the Brandon Wheat Kings. So he likes the Canadian guys and the Western guys.
Well, he likes the Western guys. But let's not get into this again. I don't want to get into an argument with that guy. Getting back to Vegas again, that Bruce Cassidy did something that I used to do. I used to, if I knew a guy was from Toronto, I'd play him on Hockey Night in Canada. Bruce Cassidy started 5 guys that were there original 6. And that was pretty good of him.
Right. And then they interviewed George McPhee after, and he wasn't happy. And he didn't know about it.
No, and that tells you something right there. Cassidy runs his own ship. And if he's going to go down, he's going to go down his own way. I wouldn't be surprised if that one of the reasons he left Boston.
Could be, they do, but
I can remember me asking you in Coach's Corner when Jason Spezza first came to Toronto, and Babcock didn't start him for the first.
Didn't even dress him.
Didn't dress him.
Well, it was worse. Yeah, okay, I wasn't going to say that. Didn't even dress him first game back, and I thought, are you going to address that on Coach's Corner? And I think you did say something, but don't you think that's a reflection of him and the other players seeing that's how he treats people and players?
Babcock runs his own ship, and the guy that hires him will find out.
So he's with Columbus now. Babcock ran out of his. How much was Babcock making for the Leafs?
$4 million.
$4 million. So let me ask you something, Dad. We're kind of getting off topic here. Babcock was signed for 8 years, $50 million contract. That was his contract.
Unbelievable.
8
years, $50 million.
He was going to go to Buffalo
as a coach. His first year, he didn't want Marner. He wanted Hannafin or another defenseman in the draft. He said, I don't want Marner. And this is what supposedly happened. And they drafted Marner. Lou Lamoriello drafted Marner anyway. Now, I asked you this once before. You know, if you're giving him $50 million over 8 years, don't you think the GM needs to get the players he wants?
Yeah, but I can't argue with that one because Marner turned out better than the 3 or 4 guys he wanted.
Yeah, but they've been out of the first
No,
round.
they haven't done it. I think that's true. Maybe he's right.
But I'm saying to you, if you're a GM and you hire a guy for that much money, don't you feel obligated to get him the players that he wants?
Yeah. Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Because Harry did with you. Harry Sinnen, your GM, you wanted Stan Jonathan, and you drafted Stan. But the one guy you wanted that Harry didn't get was Rod Langway.
Do you want to tell that story?
I think we told it once before, but I think it's for the Boston fans. I think it's
pretty
good.
They get a big kick out of this. We had 3 goalies. Ron Graham, who was really good in the WHA. We had Gilly Gilbert, who set a record, 17 straight wins, and we had Jerry Cheevers, all-star. So we had 3 goalies. We had 3 goalies.
3 top goalies.
3 top goalies like these, and everybody around Boston wanted Ron Langway, and
because he was from there, right?
Well, he even talked like about Chalks, and he
he played college around there.
Yeah. Everyone knew him.
He even talked like guys in Boston, and we got another goalie. And Davy Perro. I'm not knocking Davy Perro, but he was a little guy. And why we would ever go after number 1 with the goaltender is beyond me. When Rod Langway, boy, imagine. I would have
had Park, Bork, and Langway.
Then that's what. How about that? We'd have probably got.
Yeah, because you traded Rodney Graham to L.A. for their first round pick,
Yeah.
and they ended up last, and they got Ray Bork.
And you got Ray Bork for him. Anyhow, I like that the way Bruce Cassidy started those 5 guys. He ran his own ship. City, you were going to ask. We sat in the veranda. And you were going to ask why, like the way they play in the playoffs, why they don't play that in the regular season.
Well, I've always said that. I always asked you, why don't they play, playoff hockey through the whole season? And I always say, does that mean through the whole season that they're just going through the motions?
No, there's too many injuries.
But now I get it. I can see why, the players can't play like that all the time after watching Florida and Vegas. I can see why they can't do that. However, in my defense, Dad, I will say that most of the time I see the Leafs in the playoffs. So I don't know. Do they change that much?
They don't change.
They're maybe 5%. So you know,
I think they go backwards. Some of them.
O'Reilly.
Yeah, you have to admit this year, Ryan O'Reilly, if there's one Leaf that picked up his play, was Ryan O'Reilly. I mean, how many fights did he get? He got into a bunch of fights.
I think he had 2 fights and
all that. But Marner, I hate to say Marner and Matthews.
He got cut bad.
Yeah, they go backwards. But
well, I don't know.
How about the injuries, though, eh?
There's no doubt it's the hardest trophy to win. There's no doubt about that.
Sydney Dad, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Spreads.ca. They're a Canadian online casino and sportsbook. And if you sign up now and use the promo GRAPES, you get 10 spins on the big wheel for some big dough. They'll match your deposit up to $500. And your first sports bet, they'll spot you $25. And already, I think the Leafs are number 1 or number 2 to win the Stanley Cup next year.
Who picks that? Who
Vegas, like the Vegas guys, right? Like there's all lines. Like basically, the lines are all the same that come out of Vegas. So I think Colorado, Vegas, and Edmonton are the top 3 teams to win the Stanley Cup.
I'd like to talk about a guy named Mike Andujar. Mike Andujar spent $750 million.
$950 million.
Oh, 900.
$950
I thought it was
million.
$750.
So that's close to $1 billion.
Close to $1 billion
with a B.
for the Ottawa Senators.
Well, he's a goaltender.
He's a beer league goalie.
Beer league goaltender. Nothing wrong with that guy.
No.
So I don't know whether that's good or that's bad. He can be telling the guys what to do.
Well, he's won everywhere he's gone, though, Dad. Yeah, so he's a winner everywhere you go, Dad. He won the Calder Cup in Hamilton with the Hamilton Bulldogs of the AHL. And then he won 2 OHL championships with the Hamilton Bulldogs. He owned the OHL.
Well, he's been a winner everywhere he's been. And I'm going to tell you right now, I predicted if they don't draw in Ottawa, they'll be in Hamilton within 5 years because they're spending something like $250,000 fixing up all the dressing rooms and fixing up the boxes and fixing up and everything like that. Now, you know that they're not going to put an American League team in there if they do that. And
they're certainly not spending $250 million for a junior team.
And
you look at Hamilton; they've had a good record when they put hockey in there. The Bulldogs, the junior A team, drew well.
Yeah.
And remember the Canada Cup that was there? They were packed.
They were lined up on the major highway.
Yeah, to get there.
To it.
So, Dad, do you think that them NHL team being in Hamilton will ever affect the Leafs in the sense that maybe they wouldn't sell out the?
And I don't think it'll affect the Leafs.
No, they won't.
How about Buffalo?
Well,
how about Buffalo?
Because might affect Buffalo.
Now, I would think it would affect Buffalo.
I never thought of that.
I would think it would affect Buffalo because there's a lot of Canadians up here that can't get tickets to see the Leafs, and then they have a fun time in Buffalo. I know a lot of friends do that. So I'm surprised that Buffalo would even allow a team. Like, isn't there rules or something?
There is a.
But I don't. I think there's like an area, but I just think Buffalo's just outside. Hamilton's just outside that.
Just outside.
They're lucky because if I was the owners in Buffalo, I'd be a little worried.
Well, I'd be a little worried too, but Buffalo, they get extra money all the time.
Oh yeah, that's that thing. Oh, we all know that discussion that Ron had with Mr. Bettman, right?
Yeah. We won't go into that, but if they don't draw in Ottawa, and especially if they get that new arena downtown, and they don't draw.
If they get jerked around with that. And the other thing too, we should mention is I think that because Michael Andlauer had that junior team in there, that he has first rights to put an NHL team in that arena. So that's why I think that's another dot that needs to be connected.
So I can be way ahead of, and I really believe that if they don't draw in Ottawa, he'll move them to.
Well, and again, why not? I mean,
there'll be a lot of whining in Ottawa if they.
Well, that's
leave.
what I said about Mr. Mellick. I remember he was having an interview down by the boards. And they asked him, they said, well, what if they don't draw in Ottawa? He said, well, if the people don't want to come, we'll have to move it. If they ever moved it to Quebec, that is the greatest rivalry of all time. I know I've said that 9,000 times.
You were the only one, Dad, that came on TV and stood up for Mr. Melnick. and saying, hey, you know what? If they don't want to come out, why should he keep pouring money in it? And you were the only one.
Yeah, I don't get why he was
So
painted
adamant.
as the bad guy in
Yeah,
there. Like
well,
And he
was.
was.
he spent money. The crowds weren't coming out. Because you can say one thing with Toronto, they could be last place, they'd still be selling out.
Yeah.
And for some reason, the Ottawa fans just hated him.
Yeah.
And he's the guy that kept him there.
And he ain't not his fault that tough
But
getting
boy,
out of there.
You'll be listening to them whining, though, about them losing an NHL team if it goes to Hamilton. Boy, they'll come out in droves whining.
And they will go to
complaining.
Hamilton within 5 years. Well, from Calgary comes the news that Jerome McGinley is going to be assistant general manager. And you couldn't get a nicer guy than him. He is one of the nicest guys that ever played sports.
He looks in good shape. If they're in trouble, they could suit him up.
Jeez, does he ever look in good shape?
The other thing, of all the things with Jerome McGinley, I think I remembered all the great goals he scored, everything. Remember in the finals against Tampa, him and LeCavier dropped the gloves
Oh, yeah.
and had a big fight at center right. It's like the two captains said, all right, enough's enough.
And boy, that was a dandy fight too.
Yeah, and you got to give credit to LeCavier because he's not a fighter. Jerome, he can
Yeah,
fight.
like Jerome can fight.
So he'd be good. I could eventually see him becoming a GM.
He will be a GM of someday because he is. Well, you don't have to be a nice guy to be a general manager, but he is a terrific guy.
So, Dad, we're going to take a question from Facebook. Beryl Branson says he wants to know some stories about Eddie Spider Mazur.
Well, the only thing I know is that you told me, and you wrote it down, that he scored 4 goals in the playoffs, and before he even played a regular season.
Yeah, he was in the minors. Montreal called him up for the playoffs. He gets 2 goals, and then next year they send him back down to the minors. And then the playoffs, they call him back up. He scores 2 more goals.
I remember those.
And then they send him back down. So he was a big guy. He was from Winnipeg, 6'2", 190 pounds.
Oh, he was. The only story I can tell about him is the time we played him in Providence, and I remember I hit him. I hit him pretty good. And I don't know why I did that. I usually don't do this stuff. I started to laugh at him because I hit him pretty good. And we're both on our hands and knees. And he just took his stick and he just carved me right across the
Cross-checked you right in the mouth.
right in the mouth. And boy, blood was just everywhere. But it bleeds pretty good around there. I got up and I'm really going to give it to him. I'm really going, I couldn't believe it. Like the blood's everywhere. And I brought my stick back and I'm going to hit him right over the head. I hate to say this, folks. The kids don't ever do this. Anyhow, I'm going to hit him right over the head. And all of a sudden, somebody hit me from behind and we crashed into. I see Connor Brown after. He's all cut up. He's all the top of
He's your teammate?
his teammate, yeah. I think his top of his head is all cut up.
And they're stitching him up, too?
And, well, yeah, but we're waiting in line to get stitched up. Honestly, this is the truth. We're waiting in line to get stitched up. I said, Connor, I don't remember you getting involved in this thing. He said, when you brought your stick back, you hit me on the head. I did that once before with Frank Rogavine. I remember his name. Anyhow, we got stitched up, and I don't know why Joe Crozier was mad. He was really mad. I don't know why he was mad.
He's mad at you?
No, he wasn't mad at me. He was mad at Providence. I don't know why. It was just one of
Did
the.
you get kicked out of the game?
No, he just.
Would you guys just get 5 minutes for fighting?
Oh, we got 5 minutes for something that we didn't. We never. But boy, I'll tell you, there was a lot of blood flying out. And the only thing I can tell you about Spider Mazur is the time I had him that he cut me pretty good.
You know, Dad, I can remember you got a lot of stitches around your lip, above your lip and all that.
I remember my mom said you looked like you had a mustache.
Yeah, because it was all dark and everything. So I remember Mom and I used to take out your stitches.
Oh, first of all, let me just tell you about your mother. I remember the very first time I said, you take out the stitches, I have to go down to the hospital.
Yeah.
And I said, why don't you just take them out? Oh, I can't do that. I can't do. And I said, no, you just take the just take the cuticle centers and
Well,
and
it was the
just
tweezers. It was tweezers. and
tweezers. Yeah, well, cuticle scissors.
Well, you had
for-
to cut the
have
thing.
to
and
cut
then-
Yeah,
them.
well,
and then the tweezers pull them out. So you pull them out.
Well, what happened was every time he said those stitches, Mom would. I think those stitches have to come out. This is what you. Oh no, I think they. No, I think those. And I would just be delighted when Mom would say, "Cindy, go get the tweezers." Oh boy.
Yeah.
And so
but-
she'd grab the stitches. She'd grab the stitches with the tweezers and pull them up, and then clip them with the cuticle scissors.
Oh, yeah?
And I used to I was fascinated for some reason as a little girl. And I remember she would pinch you with the cuticle scissors so you'd flinch. And you'd flinch and you know, oh, big tough hockey player. Cindy, look at your dad, big tough hockey player. Look at him flinching.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, she used to
I
be-
mean, it was one of those childhood memories. So when you got stitches in the face, I could hardly wait till mom
And
I
I
could
did
take
get a
them
lot
out.
of stitches.
Oh,
So
you did.
you said that a guy told you in your rookie year that make sure that you get
Andy Brannigan.
to take the stitches out early, right?
Yeah, don't leave them in long because you'll big holes in the side and everything like that. He says don't leave them in long, and just enough to heal. It was Andy Brannigan from Winnipeg.
Well, I can remember Mom saying those stitches have to come out. And you were always reluctant. I think you knew because you knew it was coming with Mom.
So you afterwards too. You said like because you got 400 stitches in your face. That's what you counted, right? About
Two around there.
yeah, but you don't. There's only a couple of stitches you can see, or
Yeah.
a couple of scars.
I used to put cocoa butter on from Andy Brannigan, and he told me to put it on, and in my very first year, and I did.
Because I can remember you had it was cocoa butter and it was in a really big fat stick, and
Yeah.
you would just sit and watch TV, and you just put that stick of cocoa butter around your stitches. But I remember one thing: I did see all your stitches at one time that you had in the face. I remember we were in Rochester, and you were watering the rink in the back, and boy, was it cold back there. And so I came up behind you and you looked and I almost got scared because your face was totally red with the cold, but yet every place that you had a stitch on your face was showing up as white. And because the blood wouldn't get to all your stitches, and you looked like
I scared myself.
you look like Jerry Cheever's, his infamous mask with
Yeah.
all the stitches. I couldn't believe it. Like I was going to scare you, because I was coming up behind
Yeah.
you, and I looked at your face, and to see all those
For
stitches, in white,
$4,500 a year,
they were just hundreds and hundreds of them all over your face.
and I did it for $4,500 a year.